Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the most historically important episode of the Kiss Army Things podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about the place where Kiss got their start as a live act. Of course, I'm talking about the Coventry Club. And today, joining me to talk about that is the son of the owner himself. Today, I have Charlie Sub with me. Charlie, thank you for your time, man. How are you doing?
Great. Nice to be with you guys.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you. Nice to talk to you, too. I feel like every Kiss fan should know you and your dad, but I feel like this is like this story. It needs to be shared more. It needs to be told more. The story of the Coventry Club, the story of how your dad became, the owner of one of the most legendary rock clubs. So again, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. And we totally agree with that sentiment.
Absolutely. No, for real. I mean, I feel like I know a lot about Coventry as it pertains to Kiss, so which is a lot, but still very limited compared to what you're going to tell us here today.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you could just real quickly introduce yourself and, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and then we'll just get going into it. But I want to know who you are first. So who's Charlie?
Well, my name is Charlie Sub. I'm a musician in New York. My father is Paul Sub, the owner of the Coventry back in the day, and a serial entrepreneur who's done a lot of things since then and before then. My career and my life has really been influenced a lot by my dad. And so he never, he's not an office kind of guy. He's not a doctor, lawyer. He might be an Indian chief. So I kind of like went down that road. It was just in my bones. And so I've been like doing entrepreneurial stuff since I was like a teenager. I went out to LA in the late 70s. I started buying real estate and flipping real estate. I'm going to call myself the first serial real estate flipper in the United States. So, I mean, of course, people could disagree with that, but
everybody's following your lead now.
Yeah, that's it. I'm the first.
That's right. That's
right.
So
the Coventry was something my father did. He had a place on Bleecker Street before this. It was a coffee shop in the West Village. At that time, this was a time of folk music. Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell. I mean, anyone who was anyone came to New York to do their thing. So just by circumstance, he was in the right location. Even then, Dylan would sit there, have coffee. Joni Mitchell would come in. Bette Midler was there. All these folks just coming and going. Nobody knew who they were. My father has some anecdotal stories, if you want me to share about his impressions of them. Some good, some bad. It's like, it's really hard to know a superstar before they become one.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's put it this way. My father would have been the worst talent scout in the history of the planet.
It sounds like he would have like almost anybody just play. If anybody wanted to play at the Coventry, he would say yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's kind of like, it's not so different now. I mean, I own Ethyls, and it's kind of word of mouth. If somebody has some talent, you let them play. But it's not, it's funny after all these years, it's kind of the same. It's not so different. So yeah, anyone who like struck his fancy, he would let play. But the people who became huge, he thought like, oh, they stink.
That is awesome. The way you described your dad was a serial entrepreneur. I feel like that was a really good way to describe him. And I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of his other projects. But I want to actually start talking about before his serial entrepreneurship. I feel like his story needs to be shared. Can you tell us as much detail as you want to? I know it's a personal story, but tell us a little bit about, your dad's early life and how he, came to the United States in the first place, if you would.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he grew up in Vienna, a typical family till like, sort of like, the Nazi regime took over in like the mid 30s and late 30s. Being a Jewish family, I mean, life was fairly simple and like normal for them. And then, of course, with this sort of Nazi influence, it became really hard for them to exist. So they owned a cafe, I think more than one. I think it was 2 or 3 cafes. My father's father was a piano player, and he had some bands in Vienna. He was a band leader. So this is what my father tells me. And so I think that's where my father's musical influence came from. He never actually learned to play an instrument formally, but I think he just had that. He got that, that sort of like spirit in him, to like
Hmm.
to do that kind of stuff. Um, in the late 30s, Kristallnacht happened. That's the night of the broken glass. So my grandfather was taken on a truck by the Germans, to God knows where. We really don't know, because my grandmother and my father were running down the street to try to prevent the truck from going any further. And as the story goes, because he was a well-known um, restaurateur, my grandfather at the time, his patrons also tried to prevent the truck from proceeding. And
Mm.
happenstance had it that the driver of that truck was one of my grandfather's customers. And when he realized that he had my grandfather on the back of the truck and he saw my grandmother like wailing and screaming, he just surreptitiously kind of just stopped the truck and
Mm.
motioned for my grandfather to get off the truck. So my grandfather was actually thrown off that truck.
Wow.
And the story goes, when he hit the pavement, he sort of hit his head and he lost his hearing. So I only know my grandfather as somebody who's sort of deaf, not completely, but mostly. So the piano
Wow.
playing, I never heard the piano playing. I've heard of it, but I never heard him play. But he was so encouraging of music and everything. He was a bon vivant, you might say.
Mm.
He's a real character, a real character. Even on his, that is an insane story, which I've never told anybody, but I will tell you. I will tell
Love it.
you.
I
Um,
cannot wait.
yeah, well, me and my father went out to, I guess it was Florida, when my grandfather was about 85 years old. He was in the emergency room. And then
Mm.
he was in a closed unit because he was having heart failure. And the only thing I remember, and this is typical of my grandfather, there were like four nurses he was flirting with before he died. This is what he always did. He always had somebody he was flirting with. He said to me, he said, "Hey kid, what are you doing?" I said, "Do you have a girlfriend?" He goes, "Yeah, I have one." He goes, "Are you crazy? You only have one?"
That's it? You're slacking,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
So,
man, that's
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah. So that's my grandfather. So my father, got a little bit of that spirit. Like he wanted to go off and do his own thing. So yeah, the rock and roll thing was like, out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from a coffee
Wow.
shop to a rock and roll place. Who knows? You know?
He wanted to stay hip, I guess, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So it was like, something he thought like, oh, this is going to be great. So,
So
yeah, that's the story.
so when was it when your father immigrated from Europe to the United States?
I think he came over in Richie. When was it? 38. 38. So I'm asking Richie, who's my buddy right here.
Yeah,
As I think he came over in 39. He came,
39.
Ellis Island. He came over, and
Gotcha.
with his mother. His father, my grandfather, had to go to Shanghai.
Really?
Yeah, because the reason was in those days you had to pay like a tariff or like let's call it a visa fee to come in, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there were about 40,000 that were allowed to come in. From Roosevelt allowed 40,000. Then he cut it down to 20,000, and each family, I believe, was 5,000. So back in 39, I don't know how to translate that in today's dollars. That's quite
Right.
a lot of money for somebody, for these families who didn't have a lot of money. So they were able to rustle up enough money for my grandmother and my father to come, but my grandfather had to go his own way. So he went to Shanghai, and actually the Chinese at the time were welcoming
Okay.
Jews and other people. They said, "Just come here." So
Wow.
he went there. He went there.
Okay,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So, were you ever able? I'm in your personal business now. Were you ever able to reconvene with him, your grandfather? Did he
Oh
ever
yeah.
get to?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up with him and my grandfather.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
so
Awesome.
I knew
Okay.
him very well. I mean, I knew him his whole life.
Wow.
One of the things I wanted to do, I went back to, I think it was like 30 years ago, believe it or not. I went back to Shanghai. I just decided I got to find out. I got to find out what this is, how this, what happened to him, what
Hmm.
his experience was. So I went back to Shanghai about 32 years ago, and I went to the Jewish quarter of Shanghai, and it's kind of a slummy place. I don't know what it is now. It's a long time ago, but I went to a Jewish temple, that he was actually registered in when he
Hmm.
got to Shanghai. His name was on the freaking register of this place that was like, it was sort of like, it was like a Chinese like barber thing right now. It was like they went down an alley and up some stairs and like up to the top of the thing. And there's this guy standing there going, "Hello, what are you doing here?" It's like, "I want to see. My grandfather was here. Do you have a record of him?" He goes, "Well, let's see." And he like went through the stuff, and there he was.
Wow,
So
that's really cool.
it's really cool. And knowing my grandfather, there's got to be a lot of subs in China.
Oh man,
Don't
not
know
just
who they are,
one.
but there's guys. They're out there somewhere.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny. So
yeah.
now that your dad has immigrated to America, so I mean, was it pretty much right then and there when he starts opening up his own businesses that he starts that serial entrepreneurship?
No, I mean, I think that came from his father because
Okay.
what happened was he was too young at the time. He came over. He was like 8, 10 years old. His father, like a lot of Jewish immigrants, they opened up whatever businesses were convenient for them to open. So my grandfather opened up, we call it a dry goods store. So what that means is like selling jeans and shirts and
Okay.
stuff like that. A little small neighborhood clothing store. That's where he worked, and that's was his experience of like growing up in the city. He has a really cool story of like when he was like 10 or 11 years old, he decided that he noticed that there's a lot of like people shopping in the neighborhood, and they were like carrying their stuff in these awkward like in their hands or in their clothes. So he decided with one of his friends to like go buy some shopping bags and sell it to like people on the street for like I guess it was a penny. So he said, so he was like doing that. He said it was great because he could pay for his movies. He could go to
Yeah,
the movies, could buy popcorn. It's like, he's like, he made like, 10 cents a week or whatever. He thought, like, oh, I'm rich.
that's
So,
amazing.
so so it started a long time ago with him.
It's all about perspective, right? That's great. So
Yeah.
what was the first or what was one of the businesses that your dad opened before Coventry? Do you
Um,
know?
yeah, he opened another, let's call it dry goods store on his own with my mother.
Hmm.
So that was it was called Sub's Department Store, believe it or not. And so he did that for a while. Then he ventured out into the food business. You guys have sandwich shops. Do you know what Blimpie is, or I don't know if
We
you
have
have
a
that.
we have
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Subway and
yeah. So let's call it a Subway. So a Blimpie Subway. So we opened up, yeah, Subs, right?
love it. Perfect.
Right.
Love it.
So he had about six of them. One of them was in the village.
Okay.
That's the quintessential place we're talking about. That got
Hmm.
him on his rock and roll career, so to speak.
Yeah, okay.
It's the first time music and Paul Sub collided.
I love it. That's where we're
Yeah,
kind of headed now, naturally into the conversation. So,
yeah.
how does he start to open up, his own rock club, his own music club? Is that just the next thing for him, or was there something that like a light bulb that went off?
Um, I'm gonna say a light bulb went off. It didn't go on. There was like the lease on in West Village was coming due, and he really didn't know what to do.
Oh, okay.
So he decided I need another place, or I need to do something. I don't exactly know how he ended up in Queens. Probably he might have been walking around or driving around, and he saw a big for rent sign on a huge place. I mean, coffee shops in the West Village are pretty small,
Hmm.
right? And this thing was huge. I mean, let's go. Let's say the place in the West Village is like say 800, 900 square feet, something like
Hmm.
that, maybe 1,000. This place in Queens is 5,000 square feet.
Yeah,
So
that's a big
he must
difference.
have felt like, oh my God, I'm like king of the world, you know. So, but it was like, now what do I do?
How
So,
do you even begin to? And now, so are you? How old are you at this point? Are you like a
I'm
young
probably
boy?
like, no, I'm like probably 16. Let's say that.
Oh, 16. Okay, for sure. So you're good.
Yeah.
Did you have any like responsibilities? Was there anything that was like your job that you had to do, or what was
Well,
it like?
yeah, well, once he opened up the place, it was sort of like, I guess, we tried to figure out like what to do and who's going to do what. So the first thing we did was name the place the Popcorn Pub before it became Coventry.
Right.
So I painted a mural in the back of Popcorn Pub because I'm also an artist. So
Hmm.
I did that, and then just the mundane stuff needed to be done. So I ended up having to. It was a big dance floor, huge, like a gym, like something that would be like a basketball court size, maybe bigger. So I would scrape gum off the floor. That was my job, and I had a. Then I was elevated to cleaning puke out of the bathroom.
Oh, there you
So
go.
yeah, so I was like climbing the corporate ladder right
That's
there
a
with
good
my dad.
promotion. Yeah.
So that was my job, but I get to hang out in the rock club for God's sakes, you know.
Well, I was gonna say because you had to be like what 18 to get in, and you and your friends were
Oh
underage, just
yeah,
having fun.
we were like 16 years old and drunk and
I bet you guys felt like
being,
the king of the world too.
yeah, being irresponsible.
My,
Yeah,
my dad owns the place. What are you gonna do?
yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly,
amazing.
exactly.
Not a very typical childhood, but so I wish there were more pictures of the inside,
Oh
because obviously it wasn't like it is today where we have cell phones and all this. But can you describe to someone like me who was obviously born in the 90s and has no recollection of anything from the 70s, as far as like the New York club scene and all that, describe to us the Coventry Club on the inside? What was the decor like and all that?
well, the outside of it was on Queens Boulevard in Queens. So the outside was like be an old Irish dance hall. So it had a nice marquee hanging. It was a two-story building, but there was nothing on the second floor. It was a two-story height of the building. So on the street, it was very small. It was like maybe 20 or 30 feet across on the street with an awning and a
Hmm.
marquee. And when you walked in the Coventry, it was a long hallway. It was probably about 30 or 40 feet. It's obviously dark because it was an Irish soda bar. It was painted black, or he painted it black. I don't recall that. So when you walk in on the right side, probably 30, 40 feet is a bar all the way across the right side. So that whole span of the Coventry was probably maybe 20 feet wide at that point. Then when you got past that, there was a big open room. It was a big rectangular room that had two stages at the end. But I do recall, and nobody can back me up on this because I guess we were all too young and too drunk. But I, I swear, I swear, there were six stages in that bar. I swear to
Six
God,
stages.
I swear there were six. There was one on the bar when you walked in, right in the corner. One stage there. When you walked past the bar to the right, there was a stage. Directly across the hallway was another stage. To the left were two small stages, and then to the left was another big stage. So
Wow.
because it was a dance hall, one of the stages actually was really equipped with like all the things like the curtain pulling thing, the lights, and all this other junk that
Yeah.
an actual like off Broadway stage would have. So one of the stages actually had that. It had a below stage trap door for like an orchestra pit. It had a
Hmm.
behind the stage. It was pretty cool. It was pretty
That is
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I've read about maybe three of those stages. There was two. Kiss would play on here, and
Yeah,
then one band would
I
play here,
know.
and then there was
Listen,
one I think to the right. Whenever you walked in, I heard about
yeah,
there was one to
yeah,
the right. Maybe I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
And
really cool.
this is what I'm saying. It's like my recollection is there were more stages.
That's crazy. Because so were these bands like were they playing? There's no way they were playing at the same time,
No,
right?
they weren't. No, they weren't playing at the same time, but they were set up to play one after the other. So
Perfect. Okay.
there was no breakdown. It was like boom, 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 boom. To this day, I don't know how my father afforded all the PA equipment for six stages, but
For real.
yeah. So
It sounded like for a while he was breaking even on the place, right?
be probably less than that at the beginning. I mean, just trying to find his way. I mean, it's business. It's the restaurant show business. It's hard.
It's
You have to
grueling.
find his way. At the beginning, I think he thought the best way to go was to do cover bands, and cover bands at that time were like they were big, they were expensive, and they were big. And so I think he thought, let's do this because everyone is doing it. But by the time he paid them, they weren't bringing enough people. So, but he never quits. He never quits. So
Right.
he found another way. He said like, all right, let's change the name. Let's make it more rock and roll. I think he was like reading a British paper. He goes, Coventry, Coventry. That sounds great. Let's call it Coventry. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, so he did that. And, his advertising mo was like the Village Voice in New York. It's a big newspaper in New York. So that's where he all his advertising was Village Voice stuff. And I guess there was enough musical talent in that neighborhood. I think from what the research is, 300 to 500 bands in the 2 to 3 years have played there. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of the ads, and it was always like, insert band
Yeah.
plus
No.
special band or plus,
No.
this
No.
or that. It was
No.
like a whole weekend event. It's like
I know. I was like, what?
there's one rumor I've heard is that the reason why it was called the Popcorn Pub is that he would sell the saltiest popcorn known to mankind in order to get everybody to buy more drinks. Is that true, or is that just a myth?
That is exactly true.
That is exactly true. Well, hey, what a great way to get people get more business. Here, free popcorn,
Exactly
the
true.
saltiest popcorn. I
Right.
love that.
Right.
But he wanted to change it because was there a
Oh,
reason why he wanted it to change?
well, but it just wasn't, he didn't give it a lot of time. It was only like 3, 4 months and decided that I'm just not making enough money.
Mm,
So he decided he
try a
wanted
new
to go
name.
in another direction. So yeah, I don't, the thinking there was probably simply economics.
Changed it to Coventry, and you had to
Yeah.
pay for popcorn now, huh?
I don't even know.
For sure, for sure. Well, I know that right around this time is when Kiss had been booked and was starting to play. So about January 30th, I think, is when
Yeah,
Kiss performed.
yeah.
And you're actually older than I thought. So in my mind, I was thinking that you were like a little boy or something. So
No.
you're actually a teenager.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you remember when Kiss performed at the Coventry? Were you there? Were you sober enough to remember?
I wasn't at any of their performances as far as I recall. I do know that they played there because my father would talk about it. But there were only like 7 or 8 times I think before,
Yeah.
so I don't think I caught them there. But funny enough, here at Ethyls, we have one of our DJs dated one of the Kiss crew. I think. Who did James? Who did Dina date? Do you remember? So what? Yeah. So we have a DJ who dated Gene.
Wow.
Yeah.
Him's
Yeah.
Gene. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, Dina Regina, I think is her name. So yeah, so this history thing is crazy, right?
Yeah, for real. No, that's something I never would have heard about.
Yeah.
So even though you weren't there at the performances for Kiss, were you aware of their sound and their image, or
Yeah,
was that?
I was. A lot of that came from just like, hearsay, talking to my friends, some of them who were there. But a lot of good stuff is you can find it on YouTube. There's a couple of their performances, I'm sure obviously,
Oh
that
yeah.
that were preserved well enough, so that you could see what they were doing. And I knew what they were trying to do, and I was, in a band there, and I was, involved in like hearing a lot of other bands. The thing that really struck me about Kiss is how well prepared they were.
Hmm.
This was not some fly by night bullshit thing they were doing. In their minds, they were trying to be great. And
Right.
that's not true of a lot of the bands that were there. A lot of bands were like relying on hair and makeup and like this, that, and the other thing. But I was impressed by that. I really was.
I think it's pretty well documented that Kiss is pretty much the most successful band to ever come out of that scene, that New York scene,
Oh,
that
yeah.
glitter
Oh, of
rock
course.
band.
Of course.
And I think it had to do with their drive and it seemed like everybody else was just having fun playing local bands and doing this and that, whereas they were like trying to get to that next level.
Oh, yeah. I think they approached it in a definitely entrepreneurial way as much as you could, being
Yeah.
a musician. I mean, so yeah, and a little bit of luck, a little bit of makeup, and boom.
There you go. And it's funny because you are right. It seems like, in most fans' memories, it was like Kiss were like playing Coventry all the time, and they really only played, I think, maybe like 6 shows or something like that. They
Yeah,
played,
and it's like from what we could dig up, maybe 7 or 8 shows at the most.
yeah, January 30th,
Yeah,
31st,
yeah,
February 1st,
yeah,
August 31st, and then those 2 shows that you were talking about that got preserved.
yeah.
And the big thing that I noticed was that, seeing pictures of those early shows in January versus those shows in December, you could clearly see the growth going from like half makeup and half costumes
Oh yeah.
to full makeup, full
Right,
costumes, full
right,
stage.
right,
And
right.
and they were really using places like the Coventry and the Daisy and those places as like their stomping grounds. They're testing the waters really. Um,
Yeah, yeah. What was amazing about what they were doing is that they actually had a plan, and that's amazing to me. Like kids, really, that's what they were. They they,
Absolutely.
they, they were choreographed, they were rehearsed, and then, it's. Listen, I've been in bands for God knows how many years, and there are like a handful of them who would like put that kind of effort in to create a precise show.
Yeah.
It seems like chaotic, sort of hard rock, glam metal, whatever, but it's not. It's like it's precise, and and that's kudos. Obviously, it worked, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because in the beginning, what's also sort of infamous about Kiss's story is that in the beginning, playing the Coventry, there were only about maybe 10 people there,
Oh yeah,
in the beginning.
yeah.
But were there any bands that could really draw a crowd? It seemed like Kiss had struggles, in the beginning, trying to, get not really like get a following, but trying to like pack the place. Were there any local bands that were just really killing it that you remember?
Yeah, there were a few. The glam rock bands were like doing better than Kiss was at the time. They were more established. They were around. They were like the Dictators, the Harlots. But the
Mm.
biggest band that my father had, and he says this to this day, that the New York Dolls paid the rent.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were beyond packed. There was no room in the place. It was like around the block, and you couldn't get into the place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now it's funny how a band like that, locally were huge, but
Huge.
they just couldn't quite make it out of that local scene. And yet here's Kiss, all of a
Yeah, I mean,
sudden, boom.
who knows about that? I mean, it's like the songs were different. Kiss is definitely more accessible in terms of like songwriting and stuff like that. So this is the mystery of rock and roll,
It seemed like there was, yeah, despite Kiss kind of breaking out, it seemed like
Yeah.
there was still a really cool rock and roll scene though happening where you would have bands performing on stage with other members of other bands in the audience, kind of cheering them on, and band members replacing other members. Can you talk to us a little bit about the rock scene and kind of what you were noticing, just being a 16-year-old kind of hanging out? What was the rock scene like in your eyes from what you
Oh,
remember?
that scene, coming from an Upper East Side, like family. Like I was like I don't think I was even. I might have started playing the drums at that time. I don't even know. Like listening to like maybe Creedence Clearwater or like maybe a little bit of the Beatles. But walking into a scene like this was like holy fuck. This was like
Yeah.
decadence personified. It was like this is great. So I mean, it was. I can't even describe it completely. I mean, just the costuming, like men in uh, you know high heels and
Drag and all that.
drag and like corsets and like God knows what was going on. I was going, whoa.
Yeah, Kiss tried that for a little bit and it did not work, and that's where they kind of decided to go the heavy metal
Yeah,
route. But
yeah.
I love those early pictures seeing Kiss looking like, as they say, football players with tutus on.
Yeah, there you
Um,
go. There you go.
but so obviously you have bands like Kiss, and you were mentioning some others. But were there any other up and coming rock stars or any other stars that kind of would come through and that were regulars? Do you know of?
Well, for me, and the days I was there, I mean, the person who I saw the most was Joey Ramone.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, he was there all the time. The Ramones didn't play the first version of the Coventry; they played the second version. But yeah, he was a Queens kid, I think, from Forest Hills, so not far away. Forest Hills is not far away from where Bliss Street is in Queens. It's very close on the subway. It's like nothing, like
That's
5 minute
awesome.
ride. So he was there all the time. So and he's very noticeable. He's like
Yeah, yeah, you can't miss him. Now
Yeah.
he had a band before the Ramones that was playing there, right? Or am I getting that mixed up?
I think
Was he
that's
performing there?
I think there was Sniper, and I think
Oh, yes.
he was a drummer in that band.
Wow,
Believe it or not, yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Now, is it true that Cyndi Lauper would come through there too as well?
I can't verify that, but I wouldn't doubt it because anybody who wanted to play a bigger venue or who wanted to see something outside of the city would be there. There's probably so many people I don't even know who came through there. I meet people to this day in the music business said, you know what? I played the cover and he said, really? I mean,
What?
this happens all the time, all the time. One of the things that shocked me, do you know who Link Ray is, by the way?
Who is it?
Link Ray?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, well, you can look him up. He's a really influential guitar player.
Okay.
He came out of I think he's an American Indian, as a matter of fact. His famous song is called Rumble. It's
Rumble.
like Jimmy Page took that riff off of him. He did a lot of. He's an interesting dude. He played there, so I just found this out a couple of years ago. I didn't even know that he played there. John Lennon, backup band Elvis Memory played there. There's just a lot of
Wow.
people. Sam and Dave. I mean, so many people came through that time. My father, I don't know what I don't know what was going on in that man's brain, but
You
oh,
said
oh,
that you said there was multiple incarnations of the Coventry, right? You
yeah,
said
yeah,
so.
yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about what happened between the first incarnation, the second incarnation, or how did that come about?
Well, the Coventry closed. I think. What year is it, Richie? What was it? It was like maybe like 75. So let's call it 73 to late 75, right?
Yeah.
Then my father, somebody I guess came to him, who was a music lover of a different sort, and he had some connections in the salsa world. So he opened a place called Aratama, in the same spot where like he booked salsa bands like Ruben Blades and Tito Puente, and I mean huge names in Latin music. So that made a lot more money.
Okay.
So he was going like, oh, okay, this is good. Then he moved that place to another place in Queens, but there was a couple of years left on that lease. So I think him or me and him together reopened the Coventry for a couple more years. In that last incarnation, the Ramones did play,
Okay.
and some of the other bands played because the Ramones had already played CBGBs by that point. Like,
Hmm.
and they were like local kids, so I think they were they just said let's just play this place.
Did he also open up a disco place?
That's the Aratama.
Oh no, that was your time. Okay, for sure.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I noticed it seemed like he was really on top of the trends. Okay, glitter rock is in. Let's do this. Okay, rock and roll. The local scene's dying down. Let's switch it. Let's do it. This. It seemed like kind of like you said. He was always able to switch it up, move on to the next thing.
yeah. I think you have to have that ability to survive in this kind of business. Whether it's a restaurant or anything like that.
Hmm.
A people business. You have to know what the people want.
Absolutely.
So he was good at that. Yeah, yeah.
So what did he do after the Coventry? Because you mentioned he did other things as opposed to just um, like music venues and things like that. So what was the next venture for him after that? I'm curious.
After the Coventry, he had stores. My mother ran a couple of liquor stores for him. Actually, one liquor store for him on the Upper East Side. They weren't necessarily rock and roll related. Then he had, I guess you could call it a music venue. It was called the Crooked Fence, also on the Upper East Side. We live on the Upper East Side to this day. Um, that was kind of like an Irish bar, and an Irish bar always has music. So there's always something going on there. His partner, his name was Rodney. He was an Australian. He was a great singer, guitar player. So they always had like singer songwriters coming and going from that place. So he loves music. I mean, he's my biggest fan. Every one of my shows, he's there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know that he got to meet Kiss in
Oh yeah,
'03.
he did. He did.
Um, could you talk about that experience? What was that like for him? And did they even acknowledge him or recognize him or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah. There was like a bookstore on the Upper East Side, I think 86th Street, and they were, I guess, putting out an album or maybe one of their. You might know better than me what actually they were trying to sell at the time. I don't really know, but he went there because he knew they were there. So he took my nephew with him, and like he was standing there, and like I don't know if it was Paul or Gene recognized him, and they told him like come up, and they took a picture together. So that was very cool.
Oh, that is awesome. Because yeah,
Yeah,
I got sent the picture in preparation for this episode,
yeah,
and I noticed the young boy. I was like, well, that
yeah,
can't be Charlie. That boy's too young. So I
yeah,
was
yeah,
so that
yeah,
so
yeah,
your nephew got to meet Kiss
yeah,
that day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is he aware of all the family history and the family rock and
Oh
roll and
yeah,
all
we're
that?
we're all, we're all painfully aware.
Oh, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm glad that he, got that acknowledgement from Kiss. I feel like, again, I said in the beginning, I feel like, Paul Sub has played a big part in history, and we know a lot of names
Yeah, I
in
know.
history. The fans do, but that's one that I don't think is known enough. Everybody knows the Coventry, but
Yeah.
I think we all need to know Paul Sub more. So thank you for shedding some light on this. And I want to transition into you now because obviously your dad has had a huge influence on your life, both in music, entrepreneurship. So let's talk about Ethyls because I know, are you sitting at Ethyls right now? Is
Yeah,
this your
I am.
place?
I am. I am. I don't
This
know
is
if you
your
I don't know
place.
if you can get a sense of this at all, but I could turn the cameras around for you to see the place if you want.
Sure, go right ahead. I see the
Richie,
lights
can,
and
can you can you help me with this? I'm gonna have Richie, my technical expert and keyboard player for the Sound Dogs, help with this. Just let's take a look around.
oh yeah.
Let me know what you're seeing and what you're not seeing.
Oh, I can see the bar. I can see the lights and the stools. Everything looks great. Looks cool.
Yeah,
TVs.
yeah.
I
And you
see
can
Richie right there. Hey, Richie.
before the stages if you want. Stage. You take a little walk on the wild side. Here's the stage.
Oh, okay. There you go. This is awesome. We're getting a first-hand look here, people. I see some drums there. Sweet.
Yeah. Jesus. Okay, I got it now. There it is.
Nice.
And then looking at the front, you can see it goes all the way down to the front door.
Love the disco ball. That's awesome. Looks like a pretty sweet place.
And it's got live music.
Love that. Got some awesome pictures on the wall, I see.
Yeah. Oh, Richie, show them our kiss wall.
Oh, please. Please. I want to see the kiss wall.
Jeez, I wish I had. There. Right. Where is it?
It's right there.
Point it out.
It's right there.
Oh, there they are, walking down the streets in Queens. Oh, absolutely. Amazing. That's awesome.
A little tour of Ethyl's.
Sweet, thank you for that. It looks like a pretty chill place, pretty awesome place. Great. I love it.
It's a great place, yeah.
Now, do you own two bars or just the one?
Right now, just Ethyls. We had
just
Ethyls in Brooklyn, but we closed that. That lease was over with, so we closed that place. So yeah, we're always looking for another place. You need one in where you guys are? You need an Ethyls?
And Ethyls, hey, there's lots of bars in down here where I'm at. Oh, absolutely. So. Yeah. Even in Indianapolis is always bumping with bars and all that. But cool. So obviously, like we said, your dad's had a huge influence in your life, and so talk more about that and what led you to opening your own bar, and then I want to get into your music. But let's start with your the bar and all that. So obviously, this is influenced by your dad. Are you guys like celebrating rock and roll? Obviously, you have the Kiss Wall, but what's Ethyls all about?
Ethyls is like it's really like let's put it this way. My partner. Kind of cut his teeth at Studio 54. His name is Gerard. So I'd say that let's call it Coventry and Studio 54 had a baby, and we call it Ethyls. So it's a disco rock and roll bar. So we have like the disco ball in the back. We have like go-go dancers here. It's like it's a cool scene. It's a great scene.
That's awesome.
And during the week it's a performance space for like local bands and stuff like that. I play here all the time. And wherever else I can play. So yeah, it's cool. We're trying to keep the music alive and keep the fun alive, and keep it going. Give something for people to do.
Speaking of playing music, let's go back to the Coventry for a second, because yes or no, you had a band called Blue Suede that used to play at the Coventry, right?
We played a couple of times. We didn't play that often because the Coventry wasn't around that long, but we played there a couple of times. Yeah.
And it was you guys just like a rock and roll band, you and a high school buddy? What was that?
I guess nowadays you call it an indie rock and roll band.
Okay.
So all original music. We didn't play any covers. So yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. I've been doing that since, like, I think I mentioned to you about the comedians up at the Pines Hotel, or maybe it was somebody else I was talking to. But the first band we played was 73, and we took ourselves up to the Catskills in New York. It's called the Borscht Belt. It's like where all the old Jews go to play and eat and do stuff like that. So there was like a series of hotels up there. So we were the teen band in the Borscht Belt in like 1973. So that was crazy because we were like bunked with all the lunatics, all the crazy counselors, and like the other jazz bands who were like, they were all on heroin, and like it was like, this is really cool.
Sounds wild.
Yeah, it's wild because I was just coming out of high school and I was going, yeah, okay, like I play the drums a little bit, like, that's where I really learned how to play. But then when you get thrown into like this milieu of like hardcore musicians who've been doing it their whole lives, and you go like, whoa, there's like,
a little intimidating.
It's intimidating, but it's also like it's a hardcore like passion and a direction in life that I didn't really have one. I was going, I got to play the drums, It's like, I don't know how long I'm going to do this for. But these guys were like solid. This is their life.
Wow.
And that's a different thing when you like interact with people like that. It's totally different. Their aspirations and their desperation. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on with that. So that taught me a lot. That was very cool.
But you stuck with music, obviously, because, you're in a band now called Charlie and Sub Dogs, correct?
Yeah, Charlie Sub and the Sound Dogs, yeah.
Charlie Sub and the Sound Dog, absolutely, yes. Yeah. So when did this band start, and what do you guys play?
It's also indie music, and like you can find it at the Charlie Sub, actually Sound Dogs NYC, on YouTube. You can find some of our stuff on Spotify. We've recorded a couple of albums.
I was going to ask about
So
that.
you can hear the music anytime you want. But that started about 7 or 8 years ago. But I've been playing, I guess, like I said, since like the Pines Hotel in the Catskills since '73.
Wow.
You know, on and off. You know, not all the time, because sometimes you lose a guy because he like decides like he actually wants to become an engineer or a
Like, what?
doctor or have a
How,
life or want
how
to get
could you?
married. Or like all those bullshit decisions. You know.
Yeah, right. Rock and roll or bust.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, so with your current band, I mean, is there anything that you want to like plug? I mean, do you have a website? Do you have any merch, any albums that you want to talk about? Or
Yeah, Richie, where should they look to find ourselves? We just actually finished an off Broadway play
Street Original
called the BLISS Street, which is this is fantastic. You got to check this out. This is a 3-act play
okay,
about the Coventry, my father, my family escaping the Nazis, opening up venues in the city, and it's all my original music, and it's an original play.
it's on YouTube.
What's that?
Is it on YouTube, or where can we
Yeah,
watch it?
yeah. You can find on
Yep.
YouTube. What should you look for?
BLISS Street Original.
Look up BLISS Street Original. You'll
Okay,
find the entire play.
Theater of New City.
I'll tell you what. I will put a link in the description so that anybody watching this right now can go to the description and check it out. So you said this is like a musical about the Coventry and your dad?
Yeah, and about my life growing up and moving to LA and coming back and like all that stuff that we went through to get to this point. It's like it's awesome. It's amazing thing. You got to watch it.
I'm going to. That's pretty sweet. I did not know about that. I like that.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Yeah. Right.
So as we're wrapping up here, I want to talk about with your career spanning decades, what advice would you give to aspiring musicians who are trying to make it in today's industry? What is it about for you, or what advice could you give to aspiring musicians?
Well, I don't know what exactly the music industry is anymore in terms of like what the best thing to do is. So I can only give advice as like, internal personal advice of just, if you have a passion to do something, and then it's a little cliche, but try to pursue it. Whatever scares you, lean into that. If you feel complacent about something, then you probably should be doing something different. And like just don't judge yourself, but have a goal. Have like to try to challenge yourself. Let's put it that way. So I'm sure everybody has a spark. Just don't let somebody put your spark out, whether it's anybody, parents, institutions, friends, whatever it might be. I think people know what they should do, but they take the safe road. Not, maybe that's the right way for them to go. So my advice is to just, if you can hear yourself well enough, if you can like connect to yourself well enough, you can find a path to you, which is really hard to do now with all the bullshit social media out there. Sorry to say my French, but
You're good.
it's confusing. It's confusing. There's so many influencers. So don't listen to any influencers. Be your own influencer. Don't listen to any crap.
There you go.
That's pretty much it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That was good. So, your dad, how is he doing today? And I hear that he's a regular at Ethyls. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You can find him at Ethyls.
Oh yeah, he's here. Come on down.
I love it.
Up at Ethyls. He was here last night. I played like a 3-hour set. He was here the whole time. He was dancing. He said like, if I fall down, pick me up. He goes, okay.
I love that he's still active and he's still
he's more active than I am. He's more energy than I do, for God's sake.
And he's what, 92, right?
93.
93, and he's just as wild as he was back in the day.
Oh yeah, wild.
I love it. Wilder. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
I love it. Look, man, this has been so awesome. I feel like my whole life, since day one of being a Kiss fan, I've known about Kiss's club days, all these bands, the New York scene, but it's all felt like a legend. It's always felt like a myth. And I feel like having these conversations right now has made it feel more real. So
thank you
so much for shedding some light on this important chapter in history.
If you want to see the link to, if you can see this, that's where to go.
Hold it up a little bit closer to the camera if you can.
Does that work?
A little bit closer. Perfect. Right there. Yep, there we go.
Okay, cool.
YouTube.com Bliss Street Original, exclusive
There you
access.
Hey.
Bliss Street the Musical. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So I will have a link in the description, or people can scan the QR code right there on the screen to watch the Bliss Street Original play, which I cannot wait to see. That's going to be awesome.
You got to check it out. It's great.
I'm going to. I appreciate it. So hopefully, hopefully I hear from your dad soon and can get something from him. I would love to hear from him as well. But like I said, man, thank you so much, Charlie, for your time. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. Is there anything else that you would like the folks at home watching to know about the Coventry or about your father?
I just say, just like look it up. You know, there's information on it out there, and just like it's a crucial part of, like, you know, Queen's history and rock and roll history. It's as relevant to CBGB's in a way. So if you want to fill in the blanks of your, you know, rock and roll historical knowledge, you got to check out the Coventry. There's so much shit happened there. You just got to check it out.
Absolutely. And guess what? This was just a nice little, you know, break into that. I'm sure this is just like, I'm sure there's so much more history out there than just what we've talked about today, but this has been a really nice summary of it. And thank you again for your time.
You're welcome.
Kiss Army, how amazing is this? I mean, have you ever heard stories like this before? I know I haven't. So if you haven't, please like and follow and subscribe, and then be sure to check out the description, because you can find how to find Charlie, his band, and also watch this really cool Bliss Street original. So again, Charlie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And Kit, what?
Yeah, go Kiss.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Charlie, thank you so much. Everybody, peace out.
Take care.